Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we're going to compare the Buckethead Studio to the Buckethead Signature. I just happen to have both of them here, so I thought, hey, might as well do this justice because my last video wasn't really fair because I didn't have both at the same time, and I wasn't able to capture sound demos back then. The true Signature will run used, usually about twice as expensive as the Studio, so let's go ahead and compare them. Okay, so the first thing you're going to notice is the true Signature over here, it has a gloss nitro finish. You see how the light reflects off of it like glass? And the Studio is a satin finish, and it's not as reflective. And that's true for the whole entire guitar. Whereas this one, it feels, similar to glass. Whereas the Studio here, it's kind of a more smooth feeling. Now what that means for you is the nitro, over time and exposure to light, it'll start to turn yellow. So that might be a deciding factor that you don't want to get the true Signature. But the downside to a satin finish is that they wear away fairly easily. Luckily, this thing is just about as in new condition as you can find. But if you're planning on playing one of these for a long time, just know the finish will not hold up. The headstocks themselves are identical, they have the same Gibson logo, and they have a very thin black binding along the edge. Now you can see it's a lot thicker on the true Signature versus the Studio, but they both have it. Tuner-wise, it depends which ones you have. The earlier Buckethead true Signatures will have locking Grovers, but then they switch to the Schaller style. I believe that's also true for the Studios, but you mainly just find the locking Schallers. Here's something that you're just not gonna notice by picking these things up necessarily. The true Signature has a wider nut width. It's 1.715 inches. Whereas the Studio has a 1.695. Now, that sounds like microscopic stuff. You're not going to feel a difference, right? Wrong. It's a really massive difference now that I have them both in my hands at the same time. Just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, nut width is how long your nut is this way. So that means your neck is going to be slightly wider. But just because your neck starts this wide, it usually gets wider on most guitars as you go up, and that's definitely true on these. Side by side, this guitar, it feels massive. It's a much wider feeling profile, and it's a little bit more rounded. Despite the neck depths actually being pretty much the same between the 1st and 12th frets. But this whole fretboard does not feel anywhere near as wide. It almost feels like it stays the same constant width up and down the fretboard. And because of that, the neck feels a little less slim, and it's just got that nice rounded traditional 50s neck to it. So honestly, I prefer the neck profile of the Studios. And the next thing we need to talk about is the fretboard materials. The Studios, unfortunately, it's not rosewood, it's baked maple. So it's a bit of a visual clash in my opinion. You've got brown with white and red. Clearly the black fretboard matches with this much better. You can either find Richlight or ebony on these. Only the really late made ones will have Richlight though. Now playing these two necks, besides just the whole width difference, this guitar, it just feels glossier. And that's because, once again, the gloss finish on the back of the neck. But I'm talking about the fretboard. It feels nice and glass smooth playing on this ebony fretboard. However, this baked maple board, it has a velvetiness to it. It feels interesting. I really dig that. Pair that with the satin finish, and I had to stop the playing demo for this one and talk to Mike about that. I told him, this thing, it feels like you're playing on some red velvet cake. It's a really interesting feeling. One other small difference here is the neck angles are different. The Studio will come in at a 5-degree pitch, whereas the Signatures come in at a shallower 4-degree. From there, the next biggest visual difference is the binding or lack thereof. The Studios, they don't get any binding. They look a little bit naked in comparison to the true Signature, but it's really just a visual thing here. They both have the kill switches in both locations. Stock, they would both have a red switch tip, and they both have the coil splitting abilities with the 496R in the neck and 500T in the bridge. Same bridge and tailpiece. All electronics are the same. Both of these instruments are oversized Les Pauls with a maple top, a chambered mahogany back, as well as a mahogany neck. Now that we know the differences in construction, let's go ahead and see if there's any tonal variances. Did you hear any tonal differences between the two? Unfortunately, I forgot to check the pickup heights to make sure that they were all the same, so we might have gotten some differences from there, or just my general picking strength. But I noticed the Signature on clean had just a little bit of a snappier tone to it. Now, it's not a lot, and I'm sure if I just raised the pickups on the studio version or something, you would get a very similar tone. So while I will argue there is a very slight different tonal variance, I don't think that's why you should choose one or the other. They'll both sound pretty much the same. Many Super Buckethead fans, they'll have one of each anyways, but hopefully this video helps you in case you're deciding Do you want to spend the big money for the Signature, or do you just want to get the Studio? I've been kind of hard on the Studios in some of my other videos, but spec-wise, strangely enough, I think I prefer the feeling of this one, but I definitely prefer the look of the Signature. So, if I was going to choose one, I'd probably still go with the true Signature, but there's nothing wrong with these Studios. So it really just comes down to if you prefer a satin or a gloss finish, what aesthetic you prefer, and what neck profile feels best to you. Thank you, Troglodytes, for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.